Pleasant good evening to everyone under the sound of my voice. I am Reginald M. O'Loughlin, and I'm the host of tonight's program, where we will be discussing issues surrounding a very well known but a very well dreaded disease called diabetes. Today is World Diabetes Day, and this is celebrated throughout the whole world. It came into being in 1991 through a collaborative effort between two major organizations, the International Diabetes Federation and the World Health Organization. So right now we are having 33 years of celebrating World Diabetes Day. The rationale behind the entity and the celebration came about as a result of the terrible numbers that were being observed with persons living with diabetes. And as this program goes on, you will notice that those numbers are not getting better. In fact, the last quotation cited from World Health Organization figures suggests that we could be looking at approximately 800 million, with a capital M, persons living with diabetes. The thinking is also that for every person who has already received the diagnosis of diabetes, there's still another person out there who has yet to be diagnosed, and therefore who has yet to be introduced to the various treatment modalities to enable that person to avoid the dreaded complications, which we certainly will speak about. The theme for this year is diabetes and well-being. Well-being in the sense that by treating, by managing, or helping people to avoid diabetes, hopefully it can lead to a state of well-being where people are still comfortable and can carry on with their daily life. To help me delve into this important topic tonight, in celebration of World Diabetes Day, I have a very diverse panel with me, and I'll introduce them. On my left, I have Dr. Jazel Rowland. She's an emergency room physician, and she's on my immediate left. Jazel?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
On my immediate right, I have with me Mr. Eustace Douglas, and he would be our diabetes advocate. He would lend of his experience coping with, living with this particular condition. And on my far right, I have my newly found friend from Taiwan, and she will introduce herself so that I do not call her name incorrectly. I say it is Flora, but I hope I'm not making a mistake. Am I? Yes, Flora Chen from Taiwan. She's a diabetes educator. So welcome everyone, welcome my studio audience, welcome to those persons who are tuned in and willing to participate in this discussion. Now, because of the importance of this particular malady, this disease, it is imperative, it's important, it is highly important for me to start off to clear the air and make sure people understand what diabetes really is. So, to be able to get a better appreciation for this condition, I will ask Dr. Rowland briefly to let us know. Dr. Rowland, what is this diabetes?
Okay, so when we're speaking of diabetes, one can say that the sugar in the blood, it's too high. It's higher than normal. Now, what is normal? Normal blood sugar is where you have a fasting blood sugar of under 100. You have patients where the blood sugar is between 100 and 125. We call that pre-diabetes. Fasting blood sugar from 126 and above, diabetic. There are also tests like random. This is where maybe 2 hours after you eat or randomly throughout the day, it's 200 and above. You also have a test called HbA1c. This gives us an idea of what the blood sugar may be over a series of about 3 months. The normal values, usually it's under 5.6%. However, from the time a patient is at, say, 6.4 and above, the patient is diabetic. The in-between range, the patient is considered pre-diabetic.
So that's very important. You know, we always like people to be familiar with their numbers. Numbers speaks a lot, and numbers gives an idea as to what's really happening. So we encourage persons to know their numbers. I suspect that knowing the knowledge of your numbers would be part of the work of a diabetes educator. And for that, we in St. Kitts, we were not for many years privileged to have someone who carries that title, a diabetes educator. With us tonight, we have Flora Chen. She is a trained diabetes educator, and I would like her to give us an idea. What exactly is a diabetes educator? What is the role, the function of a diabetes educator, especially in light of the fact that we are dealing with a condition, a situation which is really serious? Flora?
Okay, thank you. And good evening, everyone. I'm a diabetes educator. I collaborate with the doctors, nurses, and the client. We work as a team. And during the consultation, usually I will ask about questions like lifestyle and your diet. So I will know your routine of your everyday. Do you have enough sleep, or do you do exercise every day? And everything you eat, everything you drink is very important. And so I have some tips here that you can see. It's the tips to prevent the diabetes. First, we need to eat a balanced, healthy diet. And number 2, we need to include whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. Number 3, we want you to reduce the intake of saturated and trans fat. Number 4, we want you to limit salt intake and eat more fiber-rich foods. And number 6 here, we can see it's better to avoid smoking and alcohol. Number 7, get adequate sleep. Number 8, to avoid sugary foods. Number 9, exercise regularly. And number 10, check your feet regularly for cuts or blisters. These are the tips for preventing, but also good for the managing. And for people who have diabetes, they need to follow these rules more strictly, and also they need to take their medication always on time and see the doctors regularly and have their blood tests regularly. So,
of course, is a mouthful, you know, and it makes me wonder, from my experience in interacting with persons living with diabetes, we know how difficult it can be to get persons to make those changes in their lifestyle. You know, persons as a result of habits, and I'm not going to use the term bad habits, but as a result of habits developed from small, developed from home, developed from listening to their grandmothers and their grandfathers and their friends. They are accustomed to certain things, and it's difficult to get persons away from those bad habits. Do you carry a belt and beat them on their knuckles to ensure that they make the changes? How difficult is the work of a diabetes educator?
Okay. Actually, I do understand it's difficult to change your habit, but for a healthier life, I encourage them to change little by little. So we will recommend them the My Plate method. And little by little, they can start from cutting down their starch intake and cutting down the beverage and the sugary food like ice cream, cakes, donuts, everything like that. And
those yummy things.
yes, and after that, they can have one step more to eat more vegetables and fruits. If you have more vegetables and fruits, actually that will make you less hungry. So it goes into a better cycle that you will cut down all the starch and the bad food.
Okay, that I guess would make it a little easier once people have an explanation and can see exactly what is causing the problems and what will help them to improve. We're going to be taking a little swing to our good friend Eustace here, even though we will shortly be taking a break for studio and station identification shortly, but we will certainly like to hear from Eustace the initial part of his life living with diabetes. How did he find out? What was his life like before? Was he one of those who drank 6 malts per day and 10 scoops of ice cream with a pack of biscuits? Was he one who liked to exercise? These are things which are of critical importance when it comes to a discussion of the condition known as diabetes. So Eustace, tell us, how did you find out that you were someone living with diabetes?
Okay, it started 1995. I was, what age was it? The age of 34. And I had this good friend. He cooked some food and he gave me some. And it was a Saturday. I eat some. And I said, something wrong with this food. I drink some water. So I can try it again. Drink some more water, then I put it down.
What kind of food you know?
It was like soup, yeah, like, you know, them time, I don't know, Rasta, just eat wild, you know, wild eating. So you had pig food, pig snout, pig tail, drumstick, everything. And I said, this thing too salt, it gotta be that he went to make the salt. So I put it down. I'm watching TV. And I go to the toilet more than 20 times. I said, something strange.
When you say go to the toilet, you mean?
Urine.
Okay, all right.
Urine, good. I said, okay, put down the food, don't take no more. Watch some TV, then get fed up, and then go to sleep. Then get up Sunday morning, my clothes done with. I said, strange. So I rolled to the end of the bed and put my hand on the floor. I said, hey, this can't be real. I said, no. This gone too far. I'm going to see the doctor Monday morning, God spare life.
So at that time, you thought something was wrong, but
Something,
you didn't know what.
I didn't know what was it. So I decided to go to Dr. Lars. Then when we did, he wants some test and he said, can you give me some urine? I said, right now. He watched me. I said, yes, right now. I go and I bring it back. He said, I'm going to send you to the hospital to get some tests. I went to the hospital, to get back the test. He said, boy, you know where you is? I said, no. He said, you are diabetic, you know.
Okay, I want you to stick up in there,
Yes.
because we want to let the station get a break.
Yes.
It can identify itself, identify us, and when we get back, we will continue with that interesting part of your story.
Okay.
So right now we take a break, and we will be right back in a few moments.
Okay.
Guess what? What? September 2024 marks the official start of Aspire.
And our government has a super cool gift just for us. $1,000 in saving and investments.
$500 will be held in a savings account.
That we go. As you go.
And $500 in shares kept safely until you are qualified to access it.
And it belongs to us. Not mommy, no daddy.
And not only that, you'll be learning all about how to manage your money wisely at school too.
Yes, all children ages 5 to 18 who are citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis
And registered at a school, including homeschool, will qualify.
I can't wait for September 2024.
But I am the first group ever to benefit from this program.
Yay! To saving, investing, and
Watching our money grow.
Okay, welcome back.
Yes.
And we will continue our discussion. We, just before the break, Eustace started to give us some very interesting information. Eustace, you
Yes.
take it away.
Okay. And then after he sent me to get the tested, and he come back, he said, you're diabetic. So this is the medication I'm going to give you. That day,
In 1995.
that's 1995, I stopped drink, I stopped smoke, I don't eat chicken, and I don't smoke. In one day, I lock off those 4 things.
Let me ask an interesting question. Did you know anybody living with diabetes at that time? Anybody in your family, maybe in your household? Because that story you're telling me that you locked off on that day is a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
Not as far as I know. Not as far as I know. Not as far as I know anybody that in my family at the time. At the time.
Okay.
So I lock off those things same day. Stop eat rice. The only thing I used to eat is barley, onion, garlic, and olive oil I cook. Lock off fish for 4 years without somebody stopping me. Not even sardine I eat. But the thing about that, I was drinking Diet Coke and other things I know that was helping me to continue the diabetic. I didn't know that. So all the time they're telling me, you have to stop drinking Diet Coke. But I didn't know that they were making contribution to the thing.
Okay.
So I said, okay, after that time, I stopped. But it's a lot of experience. Can I, if I talk for the whole night and I can talk about the thing?
Well, that's an amazing piece we've gotten from you so far.
Yeah.
Because from the experience of persons who work with people who are living with diabetes, we don't really and regularly hear this story.
Yeah.
You know, most times it takes a while before the fire gets caught and people recognize the importance of making a change, making a change in your eating patterns, making a change in your whole lifestyle. But since you spoke about some tests that Dr. Laws did, you know, what would be nice now is to let the public know, let the people in the studio audience know, what tests can we do here in St. Kitts? And the reason why I'm going to ask that question of Dr. Roland is that over the years, many persons think that for certain diagnoses, they have to travel overseas. They have to go somewhere to parts unknown and parts foreign to get a diagnosis. So Dr. Roland, can we, in a very simplistic way, diagnose diabetes here in St. Kitts? Does it require any sophisticated equipment?
No, we can actually readily test for it here. All the labs here offer the test. You can actually get a glucometer. That's a small little meter about this size with a little tiny needle. You just do a finger prick. And as I explained before, you can do it fasting. You want to be fasting around 8 to 12 hours. No, nothing to drink, maybe just a little bit of water. Water is fine, but no tea, as we know certain herbal medications actually can lower the blood sugar. Now, there's that. You also have what I mentioned before, the HbA1c. that is offered here in St. Kitts as well. It gives us an idea of how the body has been handling the blood sugar levels over the past 3 months. Sometimes, perhaps today, let's say someone does a random blood sugar test. It's normal. But what can happen is that if it is, they go to their private physician or at a health center, and the A1C is ordered. Sometimes you can find results where it's actually elevated, patient is diabetic, or the patient is pre-diabetic.
That's interesting. So these are done in St. Kitts?
Yes.
A1Cs?
Yes.
All right, so I don't have to travel to Australia or New York to get that diagnosis?
No. Available here to all.
That's interesting, and it's very important that people understand this. So really and truly, we shouldn't have a problem with the diagnosis of diabetes in this day and age in St. Kitts. But yet, we know that it sometimes can be a problem, and we have assigned the terminology a silent killer, in the sense that many persons are, as we say, traveling with diabetes and don't know. They're walking around comfortably. There's no pain, there's no anxiety, but yet when they do get discovered, when they get that test done, and they find out, they get that news, it can sometimes bring shock and anxiety. One more question I think I'd like to put to you at this time is, persons nowadays, they Google everything, They say if you go on the internet, you would find the cats and the dogs even Googling. Mm-hmm. The types of diabetes, they speak about certain types of diabetes. What information can you offer in relation to the types of diabetes that we work with on a routine basis in our professions?
Okay. Here, we work with 3 types. You have type 1 diabetes, type 2, and gestational diabetes. Type 1 is where it's autoimmune. Basically, the body attacks itself. The pancreas, the cells in the pancreas that actually are responsible for producing insulin, which helps to control the blood sugar. That's more common in children. You have type 2 diabetes, where the body develops resistance to the insulin. Hence, the cells cannot use the insulin, and our cells, our tissues need the insulin to actually absorb, to pull the sugar out of the blood. And then you have gestational diabetes. This is where the blood sugar levels are elevated. In pregnancy, it's usually tested between the week 24 and 28.
Yeah, that's interesting, because most people would have heard about these types and are a little confused, a little mesmerized, as to what are all these types all about. And it is apparently mentioned in literature that the type 2 is the most common one.
Yes.
You have millions of persons. Now, the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, which is one of the entities that would have organized this production for tonight, they have estimated that there are about approximately 3,000 persons in St. Kitts living with diabetes. That is a significant number. It's quite significant, and that would no doubt bring a significant amount of work for our good friend Flora. Those numbers are significant. Any comments? I would always like a comparison to the approach to the diabetes education in St. Kitts and in Taiwan, because making comparisons sometimes helps us to perhaps move in a particular direction and improve our way of dealing with diabetes education. So can you give me a little comparative analysis of your diabetes education work here compared to in Taiwan?
Okay. I think...
Is it easier? Is it more difficult? Though our bad habits?
Generally, people in Taiwan, they will notice their sugar in early stage. So because they get information easier, so usually they will try hard once they find they are maybe pre-diabetes. They will try to control their sugar. But most people in St. Kitts and Nevis, as I know, most people, they deny it and they don't feel any uncomfortable, so they think it's not really serious, that they need to find some way to control their sugar as fast as possible. So I think that's the most difference. If you don't control your sugar well, then that makes you go into different situations easier.
That's interesting. Now, I know one of the problems we face here in St. Kitts and indeed in the Caribbean, but particularly noticeable among persons living with diabetes in St. Kitts, the word insulin. That generates some fear, some fright. And the president of the International Diabetes Federation visited St. Kitts sometime earlier this year, Professor Schwartz. And he, in his little interaction with persons living with diabetes, he came to the conclusion, like some of us did, that the word insulin, it's like a curse word. People don't want to hear that. So I want to ask Eustace if he has, at any time, was it mentioned as a possible treatment for him? What was his thoughts about the possibility that he may have to use insulin for some time?
Okay, we can get to the point. 2020, I went in the hospital. 2019, and when I come out, I'm thinking, well, Dr. C. Haley suggests that I must take insulin.
You went into the hospital because of diabetes-related issues?
No, never feeling good.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to make a correct check of myself. And I went there, and when I come out, they gave me the package, and they tell me, morning and evening. The first day I take it was this, I think, the 10 ounce or whatever it was. And I went round the clinic. I don't have my breakfast. It's an experience. And I sit down there for a half an hour before I go in for them to check my pressure and my sugar. And when I go inside, the lady said, Mr. Douglas. I said, good morning, nurse. You know where the sugar is? I said, well, you have to tell me. She said, you're at 50, you know. I said, don't try to frighten me. Because I sitting out there nearly for a whole hour. And if it's 50, that low, something should have happened to me out there.
You were using insulin at that
But
time?
I use it the morning. So I tell her, well, I feel okay. When I go in, Dr. Dunton asked me, he said, you okay? I said, yes, I was there for half an hour, and even more. And if anything was going to happen to me, it'll happen there, because I walked from home to there. He watched me. He said, okay, we're going to see how we go. And this when you go home, X, Y, Z. I said, okay. Then another time now, I take it again. I went back. It go up to 51.
This is another day.
Another day. So I went, so it was a Tuesday, and I went to him on the Thursday. And they checked me, it's up to 51. You all right, Mr. Douglas? I said, yes. You don't eat? I said, yes, I'm okay. You sure? I said, yes, I'm okay. I said, what is the problem? This is because the sugar level is at 51. I said, my best, I can try to reverse this one of these times. Take it as how I tell you.
What I would like to know is when the word insulin was mentioned to you, and the reason why I'm asking this question,
okay, then I'll get to that.
Many persons, when they hear insulin, it generates a fear. They immediately see something to dig, and there's a fear. I would always get the question, I can't use some tablets.
Okay.
I can't drink something. Okay. Why it have to be a dig? So that's what I want to know.
Yeah,
What got in your mind when you heard you have to use insulin, which means the digging?
Okay. Then I said to myself, I don't want to get addicted to this. I hear about it. I'm taking this thing every day. I said, okay. The next time I go back to the doctor, he said, did you take it? I said, my mind tell me to stop.
Your mind?
My mind tell me to stop. So you serious? I said, yes, though. And my sugar level was good. And I just packed them up, put them in the fridge. I had them in the fridge, and each and everybody who come and ask me if I have insulin, I pass it to them. Why? I said, because I'm done with that. I don't have to take that no more. I don't want to get addicted to that. I heard that as a youth, when at 20-something coming up, I heard about insulin. For people taking insulin, and they have to go every day, I say, I don't want to get addicted. And since that, I cut that. Never take any more.
So you're not using insulin?
No
at this
insulin,
time.
not even mid-farming.
But you have no problems with doing the testing?
I have no problem.
Because that also entails a dig.
Yes. Let me think that accustomed to.
Yeah, because you see, like I say, you know, we have found in Caribbean culture, and in St. Kitts in particular, persons, for whatever reason, get really scared when they're told that they have to use insulin. The thinking generally is that I have a bad kind of diabetes, whatever that's supposed to mean.
So they think.
Because diabetes is diabetes.
Yes.
But persons think once they are assigned a prescription of insulin, it is one of the worser kinds, if I can use some Kittitian English to explain the thinking. And so I was just wondering if that was how you were thinking when you were told you had to be on insulin for some period of time.
No.
You thought it was necessary at the time to...
I think at the time I said, let me give it a try and see how it goes. Then after, I noticed I only taking it in the morning. No surety about me taking it in the evening, because if I take this in the evening, I wonder if I'm going to make it next. Then I say, morning only.
Well, all right.
And then I just changed it from there. Done with it.
Let me, before we have another break, let me ask Dr. Rowland in relation to treatment modalities. The treatment, as we no doubt would have heard from Eustace, he had insulin prescribed. What treatment options exist, you know, in relation to diabetes? But we would probably have to put that off for a brief period, because we're going to go to station identification. Yes. But we want to look at the different options. We hear fancy things in the outer world, and it would be nice to know what we have in existence on the island of St. Kitts, because persons here, most persons cannot travel, obviously, so they have to be able to stay here and manage the condition, manage their diabetes. So we would like to know what treatment options exist here, and if it is something that costs your whole bank account, or if it is possible to access it, you know, in health centers, for example. You know, one of the past themes for diabetes was access. So we will certainly like to take a break now for station identification, and when we get back, we will continue our discussion about treatment modalities.
It's okay to party. It's okay to drink. But it's never okay to drive after drinking at a party. Make it a night to remember, not a night to forget. Stay alive. Don't drink and drive. Make the right choice. St. Kitts and Nevis.
Healthwise on ZIZ TV, Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Hosted by Dr. Malik Lescott, Dr. Jolette Woodley, and Dr. Patrice Lawrence.
Okay, welcome back as we continue our discussion on today, World Diabetes Day. We are looking at diabetes. We are looking at diabetes in St. Kitts, and we are looking at what can be done right here to be able to manage the condition of diabetes without necessarily having to break the bank or travel to parts unknown and parts distant. So I was in the break discussing with Dr. Rowland, you know, what treatment options exist here in St. Kitts? And is it that you can get them, you have to go to the drugstore and empty your pockets, or is it in some cases you can actually access these at our government facilities? What is the situation, Dr. Rowland?
We have insulin, and insulin with the injectable. Some institutions will offer the pens, however more expensive. The prices vary. We also have the tablets, for example, metformin. You have Dionyl. It varies.
And I'm sure, most persons would have heard those different names, and I'm sure at this time, there are persons in the listening audience who would have lined up on the tables their metformins and their Dionyls and their fancier medications, and we see on the television on a daily basis. You see ads regarding new treatments for diabetes, not necessarily meaning that they're better, but we are hearing of these treatments, we are hearing of the Ozempics, etc., and with the costs associated with it. And I would want to think that we may not be privileged to see those in our government facilities. Like I said, one of the past themes for diabetes was access to care. When the World Health Organization and the International Diabetes Federation carried out their discussions, one of the areas where they emphasized great need was access, to make sure people can access proper care and not have to be struggling to be able to maintain good control of their diabetes. Now, Flora, I guess in your work interacting with persons living with diabetes, you would encounter difficulties, you would encounter challenges with persons accepting the diagnosis. And it probably may be different in men and women. Can you shed some light on that? If you have any challenges, any difficulties for persons accepting that they are diabetic, and how do you convince them, hey, you need to start doing something? Is it a challenge? Is it a problem? Is it easy?
Usually, the people I met, most of them come to me to visit the health centers and get their blood checked. Regularly, most of them are women. To be honest, not very many men come to the health centers to get their monthly check regularly. So maybe that's the thing you are asking.
Challenges.
Yes.
But can you compare that with back in Taiwan? Is it a similar case in Taiwan in terms of men and women?
I'm not really familiar with that part, and usually because I think it's easier to get information in Taiwan, so people also willing to ask questions to nurses or doctors, so they will get their situation easier. I think that's a little bit different from here. Yes, and
but let me see what Eustace has to say with that. How was he? It appears to me from his initial conversation that he, from day one, accepted it. That is unusual. That is rare, as a matter of fact. Many men in St. Kitts have a totally negative opinion about a diagnosis of diabetes. They are thinking that their whole life is gone. They won't be able to attract the ladies. They won't be able to live comfortably in sporting arenas and so on. They have these fears. So Eustace, help me address those men out there, because you're looking good to me, and you're talking about 1995. So my poor maths tells me that's 29 years. 29 years living with diabetes, and you're moving like spring chicken. So
And the 3rd of November make me 64 gone there.
Okay. So therefore, help me understand and help those, thousands of men in St. Kitts.
Some of them, they're living in fear. They're afraid that when they go to check and they hear that them are diabetic, they think otherwise. So, but I know that who I am. So, I know what to do. If I go to the health center and I change my ways, I change my habit how I eat. But I want to live long and live a good life. So I just repose all these things that I was eating, I just put them behind me.
Do you go to like parties, functions where there are cocktails and so on,
I'm too old for that.
No, but you do have situations arising, whether it be whether it be a church bazaar, whether it be a family outing, perhaps, and you're not going to meet grains and vegetables and fruits.
No.
You're not going to meet celery sticks. No. You're going to meet pig in blanket. You're going to meet, the things which are not supposedly consistent with that proper diabetic diet. How do you handle those when you get
there? Well, the last place that I went out, I think they had a diabetic luncheon. And we went to Marriott.
It was a luncheon for diabetics, or it was a diabetic luncheon?
Diabetic. It looked like it was for everybody, as far as how I see it.
With the things that were
Yes. And when we come to the door, there was a table there with rum punch. I pass it, and then I stand up and look back to see who going to take them up. And some of the people who they went and pick up who say there's diabetic, I watch them, I wonder in myself if they're real. Are these people real? If they're going to take up the glass of rum punch and move to the table and sit and drink that means they're telling me what they're doing home. Now when come to the break and for the eating time, one problem I had all the things there, so you solve yourself. And I watch them, I say, no, this can't be a luncheon for diabetics, and them picking up those things. They take up everything. Chicken sauce, this, the boiled salad they didn't want it. But they pick up all the cake and this and that.
And these are persons living with diabetes?
These is people who they go and pick up. And this lady, why she do this thing? She 80. And now she don't eat, she drop asleep. 80.
And you're talking about persons living with diabetes?
So I just had the bowl, the plate of salad, and some water. That's the most I drink.
So water. In other words, you're telling us here in TV land that you understand the importance of following the rules, following the recommendations.
Yes.
And you have no problems with that at all.
No.
You're comfortable.
Yeah. And you see this? This is a trophy. So I changed the style how I eat. In 2022, they give this to me. Best sugar blood control. Guys, how I eat. So I had to take me off for the mid-farming, everything. After the doctor said, what are you doing? He said, you take it serious. I said, yes. I have to take this thing serious. If I don't take it serious, I'm going that direction. There is some experience I go through. Once ago, you see, I come and sit here, I have to get up and take a walk. My 2 foot swell. I have to get up and go for a walk. So I change the style of how I eat, drink, everything. I can sit here for 3 hours. And my foot won't swell, because the blood gets to circulate properly. The things that I eat. I change the style of how I eat. Every morning, how I eat, I have a bowl of scallion. Scallion, kale, greens. Flaxseed powder, hemp powder, garlic, onion, and I cut them up and I mix them up. And I have that for breakfast. And it will last until up to I'm ready to eat again.
Okay, as we get down in the second half, of our program, I would like to invite anyone who may have questions, whether in the studio audience or in TV land or wherever you may be, and you have questions, you have concerns, you have comments, you have suggestions, or even recommendations, not just for the program, but generally in relation to diabetes. we would invite those comments. As of now, I have no, we have a microphone placed in the studio right here for those who are here and would like to ask a question or make a comment. And if we have persons in TV land who would like to call in, the number will be placed on your screens so that you can certainly address your question, your comments, your concerns to us. So we will hear from a member of our audience, Ellen, and your comment.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Good evening.
Okay.
As a pharmacist, I would like the panelists to touch on the practice. In the Caribbean, we have this thing where we introduce babies to glucose. Most persons try to give the child the glucose in the water at an early age. I usually tell my customers that you're exposing the child or encouraging the child to have an affinity for sugar. So I would like the panelists to touch on that. And also, I would like the panelists to address being placed on medication, but doing follow-ups. Most persons, once their doctor writes them a prescription, they feel that that is it. They're going to continue taking the medication, just buying it on their own, and not doing proper follow-up. So I would like the Dr. Roland, to address what it means when there's refills on the prescription, and when the refills are finished, what the person is supposed to do after that. Thank you.
I am getting the pharmacist touch, and I know Ellen, so I know how she operates in her work schedule, and I totally agree with her suggestions and recommendations. For one basic reason, the needs of the human body varies from time to time. And so if you are controlled today with a dose of medication A once per day, in 6 months' time, your needs may change. And in fact, if you are compliant and doing all of the other good things, your needs will change. So you may need half of A once a day or even every other day. And so it is important, as pharmacist Ellen did state, that the prescription from the last time may not be applicable this time. As it relates to the glucose thing, which we practice in the Caribbean, we know that this excess glucose may have two impacts. That is to say, you get accustomed to the sweet taste, and you've built into the brain a memory for sweet. So that is possibly, and it's only possibly, the theory has been bandied about, but since it's not applicable to everybody, then when we're not sure if that theory holds when it comes to the increase in the risk of diabetes. But I will listen to if Dr. Roland has a comment, or if Flora has a comment. Yeah, I'm not sure if in Taiwan it's a habit with babies. We give them glucose, but in the Caribbean, babies, something happens to them, they go crying, and we give them glucose water to drink. So I'm not sure if you have that habit in Taiwan, or if you're aware of it here in St. Kitts. And if Dr. Roland has any comment about it, certainly, especially in regarding the repeat prescriptions, which Ellen spoke about, because I know of persons who would have gotten a prescription in 2017, and they literally think that prescription will carry them, until death us do pass, without being rechecked, reanalyzed. So, any thoughts on any one of those phenomena?
I am going to try to choose my words carefully. As you know, I work in the emergency room, and sometimes I'm faced with cases where a patient may come and just ask for a refill. And I often have to encourage, I think it's best you need to go back to your doctor. And I encourage them to, let's say you have about you have 2 weeks left of your medication. Don't wait until it finishes. And then it's a holiday weekend, storm coming, and you need your medication. So I try my best to encourage. I try to tell them, perhaps your medications may need to be adjusted, perhaps they need to be changed. So I try, but for me, I agree. I think patients need to go back to the doctor that is prescribing their medications. They should always be reviewed, and at the frequency the doctor, which the doctor tells them. Not just you go to there and that's it. This is my medication to take every day. This is how it's going to be for the rest couple of years. A 6-month follow-up or an annual follow-up according to your doctor.
Any thoughts on that, Flora?
Oh, okay. And the most important thing is that actually fine sugar is bad to everyone, not only bad for the diabetic people, but it damages everyone's health. So even you are not diagnosed as diabetic or you are not having any chronic disease, you should prevent all these processed food or the sugar added anything in your diet.
The St. Kitts Diabetes Association some years ago came up with an acronym called TEAM. That is to say TEEM, not TEAM, which we're familiar with from sports. And we contend without any reservation and without any apologies that if you want to be a well-controlled diabetic, you have to follow the TEAM rule. That is to say, the T stands for testing regularly, the E stands for exercising frequently, not just exercising, but exercising frequently. The second E stands for eating wisely and healthily, and the M is the abbreviation for the medication that you have been prescribed. And medication, of course, is a very wide package because exercise is medication as well. There's an overlap. And we contend without any apologies that that is the case. Now, Eustace, I don't know, those 4 things, how do they sound to you? Frequent testing, eating right, exercising, medication. Do you agree with us when we make that statement that to be able to be well controlled, once you follow those, you can do well?
Yeah, once you follow those things, you can do good. Once you eat well, exercise well, and get good sleep, things can go good with you.
All right.
Yes.
Dr. Roland?
I agree.
Flo?
Okay,
do you have any counters to our
exercise theory? Part, actually, most people prefer walking, but they should do a little bit more if their condition is still good. Then we suggest people at least exercise 3 times a week, and every time they have moderate aerobic exercise activities for 50 minutes.
Is 50?
15.
15.
50.
50.
Yeah, 50
and you're talking about a minimum.
Yes, that's the minimum suggestion.
Okay.
You can do more than that.
Yes, that's a good recommendation. It's just that I am sure you probably will notice we have a habit in St. Kitts again, and I'm speaking for St. Kitts. I'm not really lived anywhere else. A little shower of rain. One shower of rain breaks the exercise pattern.
Oh, yeah.
So people are exercising daily for 2 weeks, and you have a shower of rain today.
That's it.
And they take a break for 3 months. It takes them a while to get back on track.
That's it. Yeah, that's real.
How do you encourage people not to do this?
That's real.
You know, the same thing happens with the medication. I mean, the ridiculous excuses that we hear. There's one lady who would have mentioned in her treatment of her diabetes with advanced kidney disease, and we're going to come to complications shortly. She tells me that her body needs a rest from medication. So on the Saturday and the Sunday, she would refrain from taking medication to give her body a rest. And this is somebody who has not good control. These are little local problems that we face here in our treatment, in our management. And we certainly would like to get the diabetes educator in to be able to convince these people. These probably are unique situations, probably not in existence in your country, but so it might be a challenge to be able to convince people, hey, the treatment, the management of diabetes is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 or 366 days if it's a leap year. You think that could be something you may have to deal with in your work? That convincing about the importance of it being continuous and not the breaks?
Yes, some people may not really follow the prescription. The doctor tell them to take their medication, then they should follow the prescription and take regularly every day.
Okay, we're gonna just quickly, as we are drawing close to the end of our program, get Dr. Rowland to speak about complications. Just generally let persons know what can happen in relation to complications when diabetes is not well managed. And after that, we will be looking to wrap up. We will be looking for the final comments from everybody on the panel.
Okay. If your diabetes is not well managed, your blood vessels and your nerves can be damaged. This can lead to stroke, kidney disease, eye disease. You can also get amputations of your limbs, hands, your feet, and also heart disease.
Yeah, that's critically important. And in terms of numbers, I happen to know that we in St. Kitts, we have a chronic kidney disease clinic at our hospital. And on average, there are between 200 and 250 persons with advanced kidney disease attending that clinic. Secondly, in terms of dialysis, the up-to-date figures we had, as of today, 39 people on dialysis at Josephine France General Hospital, and 15 were persons living with diabetes. So that gives an idea as to the severity of the problems of persons living with diabetes and the risk of kidney damage, kidney, dysfunction. So not taking it seriously can be a problem. Now, let us quickly, in our wrap-up, give whatever parting shots, whatever parting advice to persons living with diabetes. So I'm going to ask Flora to, give your final wrap-up, your final comments, your final advice to persons living with diabetes, such that we can have people living longer without complications.
Okay, then for people in St. Kitts and Nevis, the total starch you eat is too much. Please cut it down. And the fruits and vegetables really help you. They have a lot of nutrition, and the fiber also help you to slow down the sugar goes into your blood. So cut down the starch and have more vegetable is very important. If you control your weight, actually that helps both controlling your pressure and your sugar. So exercise and diet, these are the two most important components in your daily life to make you keep healthy.
And let me turn to our 29-year-old veteran, who we can consider to be an expert because he's looking good, he's sounding good, and he certainly should be able to tell us something that can be used by persons out there listening to him and watching him and seeing how well he's doing. Eustace, in your wrap-up.
Well, saying to the people out there who are diabetic, if you eat right, you're going to live right and feel right. It's the things that you put in your mouth, bad things are going to make you sick. So if you eat right, you're going to live right. Okay?
All right.
Just change your diet.
All right, and Dr. Rowland?
For me, it would be medication compliance and keep your follow-ups with your with your doctor.
Okay, and in summarizing the work of the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, we have this week of activities whereby tonight's exercise was one of our major, contributions to persons living with diabetes. Tomorrow we will be in the square, in Independence Square, from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, where we will be doing some testing. We will be making available testing of your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your weight, and your height. And from that, we will be able to know who is at risk for developing, these conditions, especially the diabetes. Saturday morning, bright and early, 5:30 a.m., we will be going for our walk for diabetes, leaving at the War Memorial at 5:30, gathering up from 5 a.m., having our little warm-ups. So we're inviting all persons, not just persons living with diabetes, not just family members, but all persons who want to show solidarity with the movement of persons living with diabetes to come to the square tomorrow morning, get your sugars tested, your blood pressures, and come and walk with us. You can get your shirts tomorrow at the square. We have shirts on sale, $40. You get the package, and you come to the square tomorrow morning, and we can certainly continue this celebration in a successful way. So I want to thank everybody, for those in the studio who came, and those in TV land. And I hope you would have the takeaway message from the St. Kitts Diabetes Association. Team up if you want to control your diabetes. Make sure you test, you exercise, you eat right, and you take those medications as prescribed, making sure that you don't try to use that repeat prescription over an extended period of time, like the good pharmacist says, but go and recheck to make sure that you're still able to use that dose and not an alternative dose. So saying thank you very much. Pleasant good evening to all, and have a pleasant rest of today, World Diabetes Day. Thank you.